back with part 2 of this week's Melbourne Pro Punters panel.
Are you still Anthony Jupp?
For the time being. We'll see what happens.
You can
head to One to Follow to get Pots of stuff.
And if you did last week, and you got the Pots plays,
you had a fat
you would have had a good week last week. We had a lot of fun.
I think it was
either, it might have been, I don't know, it was at least 6 winners from 8 races. It could have been a bit better than that, including a 20-1 winner, which was knowable,
which went super.
Oh, and Peaky Blinders won. Hello to the Wimmera's leading strapper who I spent the weekend with on a rare holiday. Boys, there's an article in the this morning's Current Bun about Brodie Arnold and Bernard Saunders. Poker machine numbers should be boosted at Victorian racecourses and racing clubs to be transformed into gambling hubs, the racing industry says.
Gambling hubs? Is that like a 2-word description of a casino? Or
Well, that's pretty much what Brodie's gone on to say. That's his argument.
That's what their argument is now.
Are they going to sell lotto tickets? Lotto land?
Can we have a 2-up ring?
You can buy tickets in the US Lotto maybe at a race course venue coming to you shortly.
Botswana Lotto, or it's just open up. Why don't, instead of any of us doing form, we just they give us a card with all the horses' name on it, and then we'll just scratch out. In fact, don't even run the race, and then they'll say, well, when's your turf?
What would you call it?
Mantic?
This idea, trackside?
Cherry picker.
Well, what I'd suggest to both Bernard Saunders and Brodie is if you want to go to a racecourse that has a heap of pokies, you don't have to travel very far. Go out to Melbourne and go to any trot meeting outside of maybe... Now, I'm not kicking the trots or whatever. Yeah. Craig Knight and some of those, and Tara and all those, like some of the most entertaining people I've got on Twitter are the trots blokes. They're the most passionate blokes going around, and they're doing what they can to fix it.
Craig Mitchell?
Craig Mitchell held up badly. He's another one. There's a really good boys.
Tom Hogan?
Tom,
It's not about the personalities in it, Jumpy. It's about the reality of the industry.
Yeah, so...
The trots was a once great part of Australian culture. That was mainstream.
Yep.
It couldn't be further from mainstream.
Couldn't be further.
So, I assume you two gentlemen haven't been to Melbourne since they've moved out there?
I drove past it on the way to Ballarat.
That's probably about as close as you got.
Waves as I went by.
Yeah. Right. I've been to Melbourne a few times because some of the boys I'm mates with have harness horses. Yeah. Imagine going to a large suburban pub with 150 pokies, large bistro, big sports bar with a tab in it, pool table, and then just beyond the pool table there was 2 bookmakers in the corner, and then if you look out the front window of said pub there was a trotting track.
Yeah.
That's essentially what Melbourne is. It's very successful, it serves the industry well, but it's not Moonee Valley or the showgrounds.
How is it very successful by what measure, Jumpy?
But the fact that it's still financial, like where would they be now? If they were still at Moonee Valley, they'd be losing money hand over fist spots, because for the size of the crowds that they were getting to Moonee Valley when they were still running harness meetings there, you couldn't justify opening the joint up for it because it's a reasonably big venue.
I would dearly like to say the person concerned, but it's an off-the-record chat. It's about 15 years ago. You've all heard of this person. He was talking about the entertainment industry.
Yep.
And he said, once you get accountants making decisions in the entertainment industry, you are fucked.
Yep.
Now, because that's what Potts just asked you, and your answer was completely correct. But I'm sure it looked great on the spreadsheet why we need to move to Melbourne.
Yep.
They're probably making a lot of money close to what they predicted, or maybe more than, because of the pokies, and because unfortunately people around the area do their arse.
Yep.
And let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah, they're the scourge.
And that's not being moralistic, by the way. That's just what it is. But as Potts said, they have completely lost the mainstream of the harness racing.
Yeah.
And I am not be the last to bag it, because I got my start in harness racing through Danny Power and Billy Hutchison, and I would never ever knock it. But back then, Moonee Valley was pretty vibrant. When I was a kid in the late 80s, first starting to go out, have a few, you'd go to the trots and have a few, and then go out to Regine's up the road with the Flemington and the Caulfield boys would beat up, and yeah, it was a fantastic sport. And early '80s, you were in Sydney then, Potts, but no, I'm sure you agree with me that down here, Popular Arm and Gamelite was as big as Surdapper and Red Anchor.
Absolutely.
They were fucking huge, and Vinnie Knight and all those blokes. Now you're not going to get that back.
No.
But once they turn themselves into race every 5 minutes, next race anywhere, they lost their ability to promote their Popular Arm heroes, their Vinnie Knights and all that. They lost the mainstream, and once they go out to Melton, they're big in Melton. But I've never been there. But what you said there reminded me actually of the same thing you said about what's those machines in the English betting shops?
Oh, the FOBTs, the fixed odds betting terminals.
Yeah.
Yeah, which are just roulette machines essentially.
And you also said, it was a few months ago when we discussed this, but the same, sure it's the same principle here, that the betting organisations make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But people just drift away and don't really care about what happens in racing.
Yeah.
So for the racing clubs to now embrace poker machines, that's a fucking disgrace. And this ain't personal, and I'm reading that, given that Bernard Saunders is no longer CEO, I'm tipping that was an interim report from a while back. But it's a good story. Of course, the best racing stories are usually in the front part of the paper. But Brodie Arnold, if you're CEO, and this is where racing's a bit, again, legalist at the moment when it comes to the board. So if you're CEO, your job's to make as much money as you can and make your job, your entity,
for the business, which is the MRC.
Correct. So this is not in any way.
No,
it's like that. So he said, well, if we make this amount of money and we bring in pokies and we make this, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
This is where, and there's a lot of noise about it, we're going to change the Racing Victoria board and all that. Well, if you're a board member at the moment, your time's running out. It's like working on a building site when you get to the top and... Oh, Jesus Christ! What about that? Just got soaked. I think the racing industry is just shut up about the poker machines.
There's some people watching this, Ralph, that'll get great humour.
I did too. Anyway, we think it's a shit idea.
That's an act of God. That is.
When I went to America, I went to Hollywood Park and...
It's not a person, is it?
Frosty!
Damien Lane.
Snowy up there.
So, I went to Hollywood Park when I went to America.
How long ago are we talking?
When was that? 2007. So, Hollywood Park shut now.
Yeah.
And it was a similar half concept to what they want to turn into here, and it won't work. It's just it'll be.
But will it make money?
It'll make money, but it won't work.
It's a recipe, right? That if all you employ are administrators and executives, that are obsessed with incremental improvement over what they had the previous year, these are the sort of ideas you'll come up with, right? So people quoted here of Brodie, and is from a race club, and the main draw. So they're looking for additional sources of revenue over and above what they get from wagering turnover. So they're trying to attract the party crowd and all that business, and they're looking for extra. To him, all he's doing is looking at the numbers and going, "This is an extra layer of revenue we can acquire." Now, I'm just saying to the racing industry and to the racing minister and Racing Victoria and all that, if all you employ are people that are looking for incremental improvements on what they've currently got, this is the sort of thinking you'll get.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's low hanging fruit. Because in your answer just then, it won't work, but it will make money.
Yeah.
Guess what they're going to do?
Make money, of course.
But it makes money while your core business is slowly dying.
Yeah.
And that's where the harness comparison has to come in.
And the American racing comparison.
And the American racing has to come in. American racing is going well, isn't it? So what, they're relevant in the wider mainstream sport for 2 minutes a year?
Yeah, or they did get a little bit of publicity yesterday with that Pegasus race at Gulfstream.
You know what, I'm sceptical about this, because I remember when I was on the racing station, and Zen Yatta was, I think, and she was going for 21 in a row. She get beaten in the 21st or 22nd.
Yeah, something like that,
slaughter, you know. And look how good it is for the sport and all that. Now, at the same time, like you, listen to everything and pardon the interruption.
Yeah,
that's probably at the time with Tony Kornheiser and
Michael Wilbon. Yeah,
Michael Wilbon. I think it was the #1 show in the country.
Still very good.
So they go through their their ever sent part of the interruption where they go through the different topics and it just sort of cascades down.
Yeah, they have that on the side.
Something NFL, something NBA, something, and they go through the issues. And it gets to Zenyatta. You go, Zenyatta just won its 21st race. What do you think, Tony? He goes, I couldn't care less. Yes. So let's go to the NFL. And they just that was the how the mainstream sport thought about horse racing. Now we close the Swanston Street for
a parade. Yeah, we have a day off.
We have the week embraces it. We have the Magic Millions. We're losing mainstream, but we're still a big part of the mainstream sporting culture in horse racing.
Yes.
And to embrace poker machines, which is computer algorithms that ensure that you lose.
It's a tax
for short-term.
It's a way of taxing people. It's a way of taxing your patrons.
It's an ignorance tax.
Well, and it does, and it what it does, it crosses over and says, we don't know how to make the sport interesting to how we find it interesting. Well, we find it interesting because of the wagering, because the fascination in trying to work out the talents of a horse and how it's going to win. We find it fascinating. You've thought it like chess, but more interesting.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, if the sport itself knew how to promote that side of the sport to more people, they wouldn't have those problems, but they don't. They put out shit. So when they do that, they have to go for the low-hanging fruit.
They keep doing the same thing. They keep thinking that promoting Zenyatta, Winks, the jockeys and the trainers is the answer. They keep trying it. Yes. They've been trying it forever. It doesn't work. Yep. It gets you into the mainstream fleetingly, just fleetingly, and the people gain and lose interest very quickly. Okay, the thing that racing's got that's fascinating, that the media controllers that have got an interest in racing have never recognised is the punters. The punters are what make your... So when you, racing.com, talk about, you do your cross to Matty Campbell and he goes, the punters have really backed this horse. And at the end of the race, so Diamond Baroness, 380 on Saturday morning into 220, starts 260, whatever. The punters really like Diamond Baroness.
Yeah.
There's a backstory there. Who are those punters?
Who are they and why?
Who are they and why? And until racing gets its head around that, like poker did, and then introduces all the characters, the Phil Helmers and Daniel Negreanu's, and why they make decisions, and shows all the analysis, and poker goes like wildfire and becomes the biggest thing since sliced bread because it took a new angle on something. So it went from being backroom to mainstream. Mm-hmm. So the way racing has to get its head around that is they have to go and talk to those punters, those big syndicates, and get them their cooperation and move it from the back rooms and anonymous people just running big teams betting into actually using their names and describing their moves and drawing them into the mainstream. People will become fascinated by them. 100%. But it would take a real paradigm shift. Like they'd have to completely change their thinking, have to go about it in a completely different way.
They would have to admit they're fucking wrong.
There's a fascination to it, and it's the point of difference that racing's got. Okay, otherwise you're just going to become a casino, and you'll get beaten by better casinos.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Fox?
Yeah, sure, mate.
And this might help the Brodies and the people who are looking for incremental growth. Are you saying that bringing it from the back room to the mainstream might actually make them more money too?
Well, all I'm saying, Juppy, is there's a really good example for racing to use.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh.
So, like, the poker industry went from nothing to a massive player.
Yeah.
You know what's backing up what you said?
And you got all these young, mathematically minded,
genius,
gambling, interested young ones engaged in it. And racing needs them.
But you know,
and we're not getting them. We're losing them like 10 to 1 to poker.
What you've just described, without the gambling, but with the decision-making process, is Supercoach.
Yeah.
Supercoach is fucking huge. And what Supercoach does, it makes people who, Barrack from Melbourne-based team living here in Victoria, that's where we are, watch with interest Fremantle versus Greater Western Sydney. And they go, because I'm engaged.
Yeah.
That's racing. What Potts just said about racing, that's Supercoach. Yeah. We are engaged if we're having a bet or if we've done some form. We're not engaged if it's just another bunch of horses running around in a circle. But if you do the form, it makes it interesting to you, and then you can go from there.
It's another really good angle to think of it, Ralphie. It's another that analogy is a good one.
Yeah.
It's a really good one, and the point is that gets those young ones engaged, and they love football anyway.
Yeah.
But racing has to recognise that it's under threat by these sports that have introduced gambling to them as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that those ones that are heavily engaged in football, if they've got a propensity to gamble, they're going to gamble on that, not racing, because racing is not engaging them.
Have I mentioned the content trap on this show? I don't think I have. So as a podcast, I thoroughly recommend it if you're interested in the media side of things, but it does relate really heavily to racing, all the things we just said, called the content trap, and Harvard Business Review. So Google that and you'll find the podcast, Harvard Business Review, the content trap. So the bloke who's written the content trap, it's all about how media are getting it so wrong because they think it's about who's got the best content. It's a crock of shit. So what racing has done, they've said, we're going to put out all these stories that the Herald Sun, the Herald Sun racing pages used to be 3 or 4 pages.
Yep.
Now it's a half page. We're going to do all that. You reckon the Herald Sun know what they're doing? I reckon they do. They're the biggest fucking selling paper in the country. Like, what funds the newspapers, or funded the newspapers, was classifieds.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the news. It never had anything to do with the news. So it was all these myths promoted by people in the newsroom saying it's about the best content. It's not. It's about the best revenue stream.
Yeah.
Google comes along, and all people want is sports scores. There's sports scores. But Google's making a lot of money because they've got the best model of how to make money.
Yeah.
As has eBay, as has
Gumtree.
Uber,
Yeah.
all those things. It's about making money first,
Yeah.
and then the content comes from it. It's why we do this. We want people to know about it. So with racing's version of the classifieds is punting, right?
Yeah.
So if racing's versions of classifieds, don't ignore punting because that is what funds you.
Yes.
The difference with the Age, which used to be that thick and is now this thick, and all that, they've lost its revenue,
Yeah.
is racing's still got punting. But they better learn that they need to promote that side.
The only reason that I'm engaging in this conversation is that racing in Victoria particularly is at a really critical stage with a seeming almost void of leadership.
Yeah.
With new people to be hired and to put in those places, and I'm hoping that a miracle occurs and someone's appointed to the leadership role that understands wagering, understands the racing industry, and understands what's going to engage young people in this game. And we have a complete shift from the completely vanilla, repetitive stuff that hasn't worked for decades. It's slowly seeing racing, the interest in racing erode.
Would you say that I just saw New Zealand yearling sales on in the background. As an analogy, would you say the Magic Nerds is covered well if you're into maybe buying a horse?
Yeah.
I would think it's covered outstandingly well. And so is English sales, and I've been watching
Cracker Millions here.
Cracker Millions there. I would say the yearling sales are promoted outstandingly well. And what's their core business? Selling fucking yearlings. So racing's core business is wagering, and we actually ignore it. We tell all these warm backstories and all that. It's actually not what makes racing industry to wagering people. Yet the other form of funding for the industry is the yearling sales, and they promote themselves outstandingly well. It's not of interest to us.
I mean, if the
They
racing
do it
industry have got any sense, they know what the biggest threat is. If they haven't watched the Big Bash over the last few weeks and seen what's been turned over on that, I mean, and the crowds at, like, blokes my age, I back the Scorchers, they won outright. Wonderful. That's the only reason I was interested in it.
Yeah.
I don't have a particular affiliation to either the Stars or the Renegades here in Melbourne. I couldn't give two hoots whether they won or lost. But you go and talk to the kids that are at
Red
high
or
school
green.
now,
Red or
they
green.
are either red or green.
Yep.
And I'm telling you now, that's the next lot of punters that are coming through. And if you think they're going to look twice at racing by the time they come through, you're dreaming.
And have you seen the irony being with the Super Coach, not so much AFL, but the irony being with Big Bash, is that there's virtually no gambling advertising on it.
Yep.
I think at half time they do a quick sports bet ad and
Yep.
that's it. So it's clearly been direction and well played to cricket Victoria so that you don't have to do that to your kids' eyes or anything. It's just watch it, unlike the footy codes have got it pretty wrong over the last few years. So, but here's the thing, it's become a wagering phenomenon without promoting the wagering aspect.
Exactly, yeah.
doesn't that tell you, Potts, how much what a challenge racing's got?
It does. It's under complete and utter attack.
Yeah.
And what we don't need is the administrators to make it easy for those, whether it be sports betting or casino type gambling.
Well, if you embrace pokies, you're giving just a handball to sports betting. You're just saying, well, that's right. We've given up trying to teach people how interesting it is to find a winner. So you go do your super coach or your big bash trading because we're just going to have a fucking idea. Please go and lose a lot of money on the pokies.
Like, here's a novel idea for racing.com. I know Woodbine over in Canada did it about 7 or 8 years ago. They did a series of 10 or 15 minute programs where they brought in professional handicappers that showed people everything from how to properly construct a valued trifecta ticket, all the way through to how to put through a pick 4 on, which is essentially the quaddie, on the key elements of the form.
So when they change the people who have run it so far, maybe they might start doing that, because the people so far have shown no interest whatsoever and would rather do a 10-minute at home with their trainer.
I don't know if I agree. I think occasionally they've delved into those areas and it hasn't got much traction. Right? They've tried.
Because they don't do it with good.
Well, they maybe they don't do it right.
But who did they have doing it, Potts?
But that's not the point, Jumpy. I think what punters like learning from real live.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Get the proper
right? So I'm saying what you're. But they've got to, when they're talking about a race, they've got to find a way of analysing the wagering side of a race.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Right?
With, yeah.
Right. So imagine, for instance, if they were able to get some understanding of who backed Diamond Baroness on Saturday and why. Like, so if I use the poker analogy, you can see how Phil Hellmuth plays ace-king in a certain position, right? Was it the outside draw they liked? What was, to understand what sort part of their bank they bet on that race, what price they were prepared to take. If they were able to analyse it properly and not just call them the punters, but call them, this is Dr. Nick, this is Sean Bartholomew, this is Kingsley's team, whatever. If they were able to introduce that as an extra layer to the broader audience that are watching it, the viewers that are watching it, that are also betting on it, to compare that to how they handle things as well, they would get people much more fascinated in it. Instead of just calling them the punters.
You're 100% right, but that's 2 steps, right? That's 2 steps. If I say that one step is pre-race, Diamond Baroness is $3.50 to $2.40. Deja Blue is $4 out to $5, and Cat's Wish is $5.50 out to $6. Let's go to Maddie Campbell from CrownBet with her latest market update. Well, thanks, Richo. Diamond Baroness is $3.50 to $2.40. Deja Blue is $4 out to $5, and Cat's Wish is $5.50 out to $6.50. Back to you in the studio. Righto. Well, they're behind the barriers, and I see that Cat's Wish is $5, and all they're doing is just fucking reading what we know ourselves. Now, that's the format, not the people concerned. There are some good people there. What I'm saying is, the first step to get to you before they get to yours is to just start talking about the whys. Don't just fucking read off the screen that 4s and the 5s. Every punter that has any idea whatsoever, and maybe you're not trying to get to any of them, has their own phone in front of them or computer in front of them. They're seeing the fluctuations.
Or you can put and not only that, they normally put the fluctuations up as a graphic on the screen anyway.
Adding nothing, but they're banter with each other. And don't tell me David Gately and Jason Richardson don't know how the dynamics of the world market. They do. But say to them, right, well, Gator, why do you think the support's starting to come for Diamond Baroness? Well, I think she might get an easy lead, or it's just speculation. But they don't do any of that, do they? Well, I don't see it. I'd never hear them say the money's come for this.
Well, I can tell you, in my lounge room on Saturday, from 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm seeing all the support for Diamond Baroness.
Yes.
And to me, naturally, she mapped to be posted and would have to push to earn. If she wanted to go to the front, she was going to have to push. Yes. As this support's continuing to roll in, I'm thinking, are they going to hand up the lead to this horse cheaply? and then I watch the race, and that's what happens.
Yep.
So to me, that's a real curiosity, particularly when it's Stephen Baxter and Craig Williams, who never handing up cheaply. If there was an avenue to be able to understand even post-race who the big players were and that, who were dictating that market, who dictated that market move, and who seemed to have predicted that she was going to be able to cruise to the front, run very slow time, just run a reasonable last 600, win the race.
Even by, let's say, the last race, did you like Hypocrite? You did?
Yeah.
I like. But I'm just trying to say another race, which is quite an obvious one, Dynamic, which they don't say. Quick backup. The big players love the quick backup. Do you ever hear them say that?
I don't know.
Ben Mellon in form, I never hear him say that. But not just, he's riding great, but no, the pro punters love a senior jockey, well drawn, quick backup, maps to get a run just behind the speed, and by the last race, the Dynamic, the betting's usually bigger, so that's why we're seeing a big market move.
But also, quote the scout, say, so over his last 50 rides, if he's in form, his last 50 rides, his strike rate's this, and his profit on turnovers if you backed him at best toe.
But that's the stuff that pros use. Do you hear the stats that they use?
If they come to me and said, Potts, why do you like a Parkus? Okay, to me it was really simple. It was the only Saturday 1800 to cross the threshold. It was the only solid Saturday 1800 metre horse in that race.
Yes.
If the race was run at a solid enough tempo, it was the very likely winner. Yes. And I marked it this price, which I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was $3.50.
Yep.
Maybe I marked it shorter. Because of that, and it marked it a clear favourite.
Yes.
And to me, the alternative was, if this race is really slowly run, the next likely winner of the race is Gervais, who might be able to pinch it.
Yeah.
But if it's solidly run, the Parkers will finish in front. So I'm saying if they get that type of analysis from a bunch of bigger players, they'll understand why that horse is $3.80 into $3 late, and why they might have marked it $2.80.
What you just described was your opinion.
Yeah.
What they also need to describe is the bigger moves. So instead of just reading something off the screen, try and have the expertise to say, we think this is happening for this reason.
Yeah,
even if it's speculation, it doesn't matter if you're right.
Yeah.
But that's what's making us. What do you do pre-race? You think, why is this?
You read the tea leaves.
Mar Jones was diabolical.
But I just think more, if you can actually get to who the punters are.
No, I don't disagree.
Who the punters are, then people will become more engaged in it. They'll try and copy it themselves. They'll look at it and try and say, I want to do that.
But the only problem there is, Potts, is I'm not sure whether those guys are going to want to show themselves.
Yeah, but Jumpy, they all, in a way, okay, I don't really want to show myself. Right?
Yeah.
But the only reason that I do this show and do other things I do, because I want the industry to thrive.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's motivation for all those big teams, Jumpy. If the industry keeps going down the path it is, and it gets smaller and smaller.
They're just competing against themselves.
It's no good for them.
Yeah.
So
Well, they're betting on.
and I'm just saying to you, if you just take the analogy of the poker players.
Oh yeah.
They had a very small industry that was backroom.
Yep.
Now they've got a huge pie, and they can all have a small slice of it. Do you know what I mean? So I'm saying if you go to them, and the whole industry takes a different point of view to what it's taken for decades. Okay, and explains it to them correctly and says, this is what we want to do. We want to bring you guys out of the darkness into the light and help educate a much broader audience that will increase the size of the pie for everyone.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You have to sell it to them. They won't do it voluntarily.
No, they won't.
So in summary, poker machines are shit. The poker playing coverage is excellent. So let's embrace that a bit more and a bit less of that. Is that what we've got?
Week ahead, boys, Ballarat tomorrow, Sandown Wednesday.
Back to the lakeside.
Is it?
First time in a long time. Yeah.
Any hits for us?
No, not yet. I'm going out there tomorrow. So.
Turang and Pakenham on Thursday, Moonee Valley Saturday.
Caulfield Saturday.
Caulfield
Black
Saturday, and I'm off to the Woolamai Cup meeting, so that should be a good
Golden
day down
Penguin.
there. The Gold Penguin down there.
Yeah.
Should be a good day down there, actually. And is there a provincial meeting somewhere? Oh, Yarra Valley's on. So there's plenty of racing coming up, so get involved, everyone. And just a shout out.
Yes.
I've got to give a shout out, basically, because I'm just a complete drunk at the minute. I can't remember all the names. There's been 3 or 4 guys that have come up to me over the last few meetings and said, we really love the show, keep up the good work. So that's always
Put a like
appreciated.
on YouTube because then more people see it. We appreciate it.
So head to One to Follow to grab the Punters plays and the full sets.
Can I just say, before we move on, we should have mentioned this earlier, but for our subscribers out there, not just for the Pots players, but for Johnny Walder's stuff and everything else, just be a little bit understanding when it comes to the lower profile meetings, the out wide ones, and the fickleness of the markets. There are some, unfortunately, when you're doing the sort of services that we do, those markets can move so quickly, and it can be frustrating for people, but just accept sometimes their markets are going to move very quickly, and you'll probably have to average the price out over the full course of betting, because they can, it's very volatile.
Can I give an interesting example of that, Potts? As most people know, I bet on everything, and I am very ably assisted by my cousin. Let's call him the Dividend. Dividend only bets on sports. I was sitting at home last Monday, and a trader at one of the betting shops contacted me saying, "Why is the Dividend backing this first starter at Seymour? What does he know?" I said, "Well, he's probably at work because he's got a full-time job. I'll try and get hold of him, see what I can see, but he certainly hasn't tipped it to me." So the Dividend, who is marked up on sport but not marked up on racing, has backed a horse. It was a Sean Dwyer first starter. It was $8. The next price was $5.50 because the Dividend had backed it.
There we go.
It was beaten at the 600.
Yeah.
But it turns out that Dividend's old man owns a pub in Bendigo, and a couple of the owners have been drinking in there, and they tipped it to Dave's old man, so Dave backed it. But that was enough to just collapse the price, and that's the sort of markets that we're dealing with now on these outside of the Saturdays and Wednesdays.
That's why the importance of imbeciles who say owners should get first crack at it. The last people we want to hear from is owners.
Yeah.
but that's what it's like, isn't it? Plus, the algorithms are so aggressive on those minor meetings now that the prices just collapse.
Yeah, particularly if one of the big teams takes the price across the board, then one operation in particular, I won't. They'll really take the sword to the price, and then it'll bounce back out. But it's
Well, now he's given us the wind up.
It's not me and Johnny knocking off a price that we're about to send out to our subscribers. Can I just say that doesn't happen.
We'll be back. It'll probably be a later show next week because it's Super Bowl next weekend. I may not survive. So until then, punters, good luck.